You're listening to the Full-Time Function Musician Podcast, episode 21.
You're listening to the Full-Time Function Musician Podcast, the number one resource for growing your function musician business. If you're a solo wedding singer, part of a 12-piece luxury show band, or anything in between, and want to learn from other successful musicians, you're in the right place.
You're listening to the Full-Time Function Musician Podcast. I am your host, Jack Twiner. If this is your first time listening, then welcome. If you're a regular listener, then welcome back. This podcast is for musicians who are looking to grow their business, book more gigs, hear some inspiring stories, and generally just learn from others who've been doing it successfully for years. So before we get into today's episode, I just want to let you know about an offer I'm going to be running on the 21st and 22nd of September. I'm going to be running another half-price showreel weekend. That means you can get my classic 6-song showreel package plus a photo shoot for half the normal price. That's 6 song snippets put into a 6-minute showreel. I also supply you with condensed versions, 3-minute showreel, 1.5-minute showreel, plus loads of social media content and a photo shoot where you get up to 10 photos. This is only available to solo musicians and duos. It takes place at my studio in Reading, and each slot is 2 hours long, and there are 8 slots available. I'm launching it here first, so if you're listening on the week this episode drops, then you can get it before I fully launch it next week. This is the 4th time I've done one of these now, and they normally sell out pretty fast. So if you'd like to inquire, you can message me on Instagram at @InFocusRecordingCo, or you can email me. The email address will be in the episode description. So yeah, it's a great time to get a fresh showreel and loads of new content for a super reasonable price. But that's enough from me now. Let's get into the episode. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Alex Bargh. You're listening to the Full-Time Function Musician Podcast, and on today's episode, we have Alex Bargh. Alex is a professional function, session, recording and live drummer, as well as a drum tutor who grew up and built his artistry in and around South Wales. Now based in Cheshire, he cut his teeth with his drumming in the underground and unsigned scenes of the UK throughout his teens and early 20s, and has progressed through to playing the UK wedding and function circuits within the last decade. From receiving a firm acknowledgement from Benji Webb of Skin Dread in a battle of the bands at TJ's in Newport at the age of 17, to playing in bands supporting the likes of Hawthorne Heights, Browning, and early Holding Absence, through to depping for shows last minute to save the day and playing venue residencies in the UK and America with wedding and function bands. Alex has had a variety and plethora of experience that he brings forward to any musical outfit that he is involved in. Not only that, but he has built his own drum tutoring business where he has 30 plus students on his books through a means of simple word of mouth networking and a small amount of SEO through his website. Alex, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
I mean, I feel tired just from reading all of that stuff, so you must be exhausted.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly brings forward a hell of a lot of challenges in a multitude of different ways. Also, in terms of like just not only like we just said the business side of the drum teaching, but I try to kind of put myself in and everywhere where I can.
Yeah.
But also kind of staying true to myself in terms of what would actually suit me to kind of be involved with.
Yeah.
Like in terms of all of the business side of things, it's more a matter of me like just grounding myself into that and then letting my kind of artistry just kind of go with it and see where we kind of end up with a lot of the musical acts that I'm in anyway.
Yeah. So just for the listeners, Alex was actually one of the first people to contact me after the podcast was released about being on the show. It's taken a bit of time to organize, but super excited to have you on. And I'm sure you're going to have loads of knowledge to share with all of that experience. But yeah, first of all, let's go back and find out a bit about yourself and where you got started and the journey that's brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of myself, grew up in South Wales. Music scene was rife. It was absolutely booming all the way throughout my teens. My teenage years would be in the thousands, as it were.
I feel like we're probably a pretty similar age, right?
Probably, yeah.
35.
Yeah. I'm 34. Yeah. So,
nice.
In terms of my upbringing and the kind of music that I was being regularly brought forward to throughout school, etc. That was like a predominant kind of force and an energy that I really took on. I was like in numerous different bands with friends, just kind of like proper garage bands almost, really, where we'd get together. I think at the time when we actually started any kind of garage bands, it was I think everybody wanted to get involved. There was only about 4 actual instruments being played, just like typical bands, so guitar, bass, drums, etc. But then it was more other guys just wanted to get into sing, so we had about 8 of us or something, 9 of us. But we played like Seven Nation Army. That was the one thing. I think it was like 12 or 13 that I started like actually getting into some sort of band. But yeah, I mean, just a bit more even earlier than that, really, is I was performing from like the age of 4, because my family's really heavily involved in amateur dramatics for years. So like singing and acting. My mum sang and acted throughout her youth. My brother and myself would be roped along, just like not dragged as such, but like the enthusiasm kind of, we would just be like absolutely into it. I think we were into it like beneath the surface, so unconsciously.
Yeah.
So we went along. We did like numerous different kind of pantomimes and shows and things. So that's where the performing arts kind of comes in. My dad was renowned for acting as Tommy Cooper. He didn't really like the acting, I think. He was trying to get away from it a little bit, kind of leaving it for my mum to do. But yeah, he was actually, my parents are both Scousers as well. So they're both from Liverpool, and they just have a natural flair for being funny.
Yeah.
And he was just that kind of natural. He had this natural flair for getting the best out of everyone, which was amazing to kind of grow up with. I suppose like going back to kind of the musical band roots, as it were, my first awakening for like listening to music was listening to the Red Hot Chili Peppers' Californication album, and that brought forward more towards my art, like what I wanted to kind of achieve on the drums mainly. Mm-hmm. So Chad Smith's probably the first drummer to really give me an insight of how I like to play, or the energy that kind of came through from that. So I have that album is on repeat. I like Dirt, Other Side, all of that, all of those songs, not maybe the most popular ones, but all of those tunes are absolutely like they smash out of the park every time you're listening to them. So just a little bit more about me then, in terms of I got a drum kit obviously at 12, 13, because we started playing Seven Nation Army, and then I think I turned to, I had a big band like that, which was kind of whatever, like we just kind of got together, and then first real band was just a trio with me and my old friend, who I haven't spoken to goodness knows how long now, musician turned sound engineer Dominic, and then my brother, I don't know if you'll be listening to this, I have no idea, but my brother, we named ourselves Starcade, and we played like Nirvana covers and punk covers and rock covers and whatever we could get kind of on the table to play. And we used to play in our little, basically my father decided to, well, I don't know if he did it, but he definitely got a group of people to convert our garage. We only had a semi-detached house. So to convert a semi-detached house into 2 in a garage,
nice. It's
very, very small. So we'd have these small 15-watt amps or whatever, and a drum kit in this really, really small.
Proper garage band.
Proper garage, yeah, absolutely. And then we were there just kind of rocking out all these songs, probably getting tinnitus, to be honest, but like you could grow into tinnitus. We look after our hearing now, like this is the thing, isn't it? Looking after yourself. But yeah, we just kind of got in there as much as possible. Like I said, played in bands through my teens. I had a break in roughly about university time. So when I went to university in 2008, I didn't really play that much. It just kind of took a backseat because I went through the performing arts thing of going to and studying drama. Mm-hmm. So I studied drama, and then like just working countless jobs through the years as well to kind of just supplement myself and keep myself going. That's basically my kind of upbringing into music, and there's so many bands that I was into. But what was surreal is because I was based in South Wales, just proper name dropping loads of bands now that were just kind of regularly around, and yeah, again, not like directly in contact with, but you kind of knew that they were around and they were playing these smaller venues. Like we mentioned before, like Newport TJs is like where I played regularly. And they used to have Teen Spirit nights on like, I think it was once a month or once every 2 months. And me and the lads that I was in a band with at the time were like, we need to go rehearse. We need to go play these Teen Spirit nights. It was really quite enjoyable and exciting. I think it's a bit different now, like from that. I think it's more of a get together with your friends, sort something out, and then just go book a gig, like an actual real kind of gig, or go do an open mic night or something. But it was like it had an event to it, like more of a kind of, this is what happens every time, and you kind of work towards that, like to go and perform at it. I swear on their website, because it was really early doors for like lots of websites that were coming out, used to give like ratings for like the bands that were playing. I found it a bit like, how can you rate a band? Like it's a bit harsh, but we tended to come out top all the time, like 4 or 5 stars every time we played, which is really, really cool. But that was basically how I just played. I played with so many different, a lot of other bands that I played in. I was in like a core of like 2 bands, who were in my age group. But then there were so many other musicians that were older than me throughout school who would call upon me to kind of play.
Was the goal then always to be in like an originals band rather than like a function band?
I think at the beginning, I think that the ultimate thing was to create my own originals music. But how it's kind of, and I still do. However, it's more, it takes a back seat because just to be kind of in the real world for a minute, it's kind of like it takes a lot of input for that originals band to get to a certain stage, and it's got to be an all in from like from the get go, and everyone has to kind of collect. Like there's some people that are in charge, and then there's not really an understanding of like who's in charge of that band, for example.
It's supposed to be friends, right? And it's everyone, but it doesn't really end up working like that. There's always one person that does everything, and then everyone else just gets annoyed at them.
Whatever, exactly. And they're the leader, and then everyone's just like, they got to collect. They just kind of go along with it and just be. But you don't quite get that when you're that age and when you're just kind of finding yourself, and that kind of happened for a lot of the time. That's why I was in so many different things, because it was just different. People were just trying to find their feet about what they wanted or what they wanted to get out of it in an originals band. I was just cut my teeth through all of these different genres and songs and stuff like that. And then basically when I came back from university, after like going through all of that and then having 3 years off, to be honest, a hit, I just needed to get back into it. I don't know. I just always had this drive to go back and play in whatever setting that would be. I didn't know what it was going to be until just putting myself out there to do it. A lot of it was kind of just seeing who was, social media was very early, I think, at this point. It was really, really early days. But you were just kind of scouting around, seeing who was looking for a band, like a drummer for a band or looking for a certain musician. And then I think I joined as a bassist for a band after a few years of working menial jobs, just again. And then it was more, I'd played bass for 2 or 3 months or something like that in my mate's band. And then it was like, that whole kind of business thing kind of came in again, because we were literally driving for hours and hours and hours to a gig, say, and then nothing came of it. And we were a little bit like, we were enjoying the experience of it. It was great. And we were enjoying the music of it. It was all good. But then it was like, no one's really in charge. It was kind of like sparse. And it was because we were mates, and that's how it kind of went through. And that's how it kind of just happened. But then my first real kind of professional thing, I suppose, is in a band called Giving Into Ghosts, and they're no longer going anymore. They were based in Cardiff. And that's where all of like the shows that we were playing kind of developed. And I was kind of just proper grafting a little bit, and the guys in the band were just like really on board, like with pushing us out there. Like it was just all three of the four of us, because we were 4-piece, playing kind of post-hardcore, like influenced by the likes of like Thrice and Funeral for a Friend and like Alexis on Fire, these kind of hardcore bands. From that, we were like, we really wanted to get ourselves onto any show that we could possibly get onto. And, you know, the Hawthorne Heights one, which was in Swansea, actually, I don't know. Yeah, again, if any of the promoters or anyone that I know is actually like listening to this, they will be like, oh, I remember that. And I was literally just plugging us to them like big time. We did our first like ever proper first music video when we were, I think I was going to 23, 24. And like now, it's like video crazy, you know, like people are just doing videos left, right and center, having creative ideas and having the open outlook. But it really did take a long time to kind of get to a video and having a concept for it, or whether it was going to be a live shot and getting the crew behind you to be able to go and do that. Like
the money as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just we all had to collaborate. We were all working all the different kinds of jobs to kind of put that in.
Because there's no sort of like financial gain at this point in those kind of bands, is there?
Nope. It's just you're all in for everything that of your worth, like everything that you've got, you put it all in and see what happens. It was a kind of see what happens now. There was not really any metrics to kind of YouTube or anything like that kind of happened now. So we were kind of it was all for the love of doing it, really. That was it. And we all loved that kind of music and we all played it and we loved the music video. I think it's still on YouTube if anyone wants to have a listen. Go have a listen to it, because there's like a 4-track EP we did. We recorded with a lot of people that are based again in South Wales. So I think they still record. I have no idea. I think one of the producers is doing electronic music now. But yeah, so we recorded that 4-track EP. We were planning loads more stuff, and they did end up. I moved away because I'm now married. So I moved away, but they did like I think it was either a 5 or a 6-track second EP after that, which is actually belting, and it just shows the progression that we were actually musically writing at the time before I left, and they got someone else to finish it all off. That they were really making massive steps, and that was really cool. Oops. Making massive steps, and it's just a shame that I had to move away, really, because I feel like in my heart it could have really done big things. Like we could have gone touring, we could have done all of this type of stuff. I'm just a bit gutted, and it kind of sits with me that for a while, you know. Yeah. After that, moved away, and then I was in loads of other kind of cover bands, and I was just dotting about, just getting, and it was more. That's when a kind of conversion happened, I think, in my journey. So like a conversion to kind of more of the business side of things, and it was. I was enjoying it, but then I was starting to see kind of almost like patterns emerge, like of what I should be asking at certain points, or what I should be pushing for at certain things, and that's that can kind of all comes through just knowing what you then kind of want. You have to make a decision, like making those decisions through those later years, like I'd say mid to late 20s. I was making those decisions, and then. Yeah, now it's kind of developing into more of the function side and the business now I've got. Yeah.
So what came first, teaching or just playing in function bands?
Just playing in function bands.
Yeah,
was the first thing.
Because essentially you're running two businesses, right? Your teaching business and function band business.
My function band. Yeah, I'm kind of a co-leader in the function band because loads of other people that are involved in the function. Like, well, I say the two of us really. That are kind of the core to that function band business now. And we have then one other member that's more of a collaborator in it. Mm-hmm. That's kind of more input to us, and for us to take that input in and then see what we can do with it with the two of us.
Yeah.
That's where we're kind of going with it at the minute. That came first, but I wasn't in this kind of function band. I was a mere player again to begin with. Like I said, that's where it all stems from. But then now it's me more involved, which is and like I said, more of a kind of financial input to ROI, all of that kind of stuff. That is all really, really businessy. But then it kind of all comes in, and then we have to deliberate what we're going to do with that.
Yeah.
So, albeit like it's more responsibility and more risk, and more all of us kind of taking me and my co-leader taking all that on. I think we have a really good way of being almost like creative directors to be able to know where we're going to direct that energy and what it should go towards in the long run, as it were. Whether that's towards, like I said, even more, because we've never really been hot on marketing content or content on social media. We've never really been of that kind of band. And I think this is quite surreal because I know that I've listened to quite a lot of the content of this podcast, and there are a lot that are really into their marketing and content. And I think to a degree, it's really, really good that they are utilizing loads of different tools to kind of really reach out. And I mean, to really get to the core of what is their clients or their audience. And that's all well and good. But then the core of the musicianship, right? And I was actually discussing this with my co-leader before, and I was going, I think there's a certain way that function bands are actually portraying themselves now, and it's becoming like almost like a template. And it's a little bit, I'm trying not to make this kind of personal or anything. I'm trying not to. So you got to be true to kind of what you want to get out of it in the best way, and really dig deep into yourself about what that's going to be, without it having this kind of third wall, this kind of third wall in front of you, fourth wall. Sorry, my bad. So like the fourth wall in front of you, where you're kind of shadowing everybody with what you're presenting, albeit it's got to be really professional for sure, right? I think it was more about like recording and audio that we were talking about, is that I can kind of tell because with drums particularly, you're moving air around, like in a nutshell. So when you're hitting skins, the air that's generated in through that snare drum or that tom or anything like that, that pushes the air through the microphone, and you feel it. Now, when you can feel it on the other side, right? So if you're listening as a listener, or as your client, or as your audience, it's like, that's why I like the albums like Californication, because all of that is just organic, right to the core. And even though we're talking about function bands, you still need that for you to really let everybody else feel what you're doing. Yeah, that's how I see it. And I don't know, typically at the minute, what I'm seeing when I've been on social media or briefly or anything like that, is I'm seeing this kind of, not cutting corners, but it is a kind of, this is what we're going to look like, and this is what it's going to be, and that's good, and that works. Fair enough to them, fair enough to anyone who wants to do that. But we have a bit of a different mindset since having this whole function business that we're starting to really build. I think we've been a function band for about, with this, well, the three of us that are kind of into, who were the co-leaders and the collaborator, have been together for about 6 years. And it's only now that we're really actually starting to push all of that out, which sounds surreal.
So is this like making songs your own, and like, just sort of putting your own spin on them and things like that?
Yeah, it's putting it. We like pop, and we like punk, and we like rock and punk, pop punk and punk rock. So, like, to go back to my roots, to put a filter through it, but not make it so filtered that way when it comes to the actual audio that you're hearing or the actual songs that you're hearing, and make it kind of more raw, I think is what we're trying to do. Because like everyone in the business knows, there's so many effects or so much you can put on into the recording. But like if you go back years and years and years and years in musical history, they didn't necessarily use any of that. And then the actual beauty of it actually comes out. Each to their own though, right? Each to their own. If it works for your own artistry or what you're doing in terms of your function band, and you want it to sound like that, and you think that's a good idea, fine. That's really, really cool. But for the function band we're developing now, it's more of it's got to be true to what we want to. If we want to hear that back,
Yeah.
And because I've been married, and like I had a function band, actually a wedding band, come in and play for my wedding, and I wanted something kind of funky, kind of in the soul realm. With that band, I just knew that all of the audience, which is basically my family, my whole family. I have a big family, by the way, a massive family. Yeah, so all my family would be really on board with that soul band, that funk soul thing, and I just had this in mind from networking a little bit with friends from back in my teenage years. Basically, the keys player is phenomenal in that band that came to my wedding. Unfortunately, though, as it is in the function world, is he couldn't make it because I think he was having his first child. So another keys player turned up, even though I knew he was going to be in it, or in that band. So I was there. I still had the band because the band was still bringing exactly the same like vibe, as it were, like to it. But yeah, this is the thing: is that they were incredibly authentic. Their recordings and everything that they were presenting in their kind of marketing and everything on their website was absolutely what you were getting. Because I think there's this kind of fine line now of sometimes it presents in that way, but it's not necessarily what you're going to get on the day.
So is that what you're trying to do then with this band, is make it authentic, and what you see is kind of what you know you're going to get?
Exactly, yeah. So, and we want that represented in absolutely everything that we're doing. So we don't want to not cut corners, but kind of just keep it as close to what we can do as people, as musicians. Yeah. So we want it as close as that as possible. Yeah. So that's kind of the aim. And just going back to my function band, is we've literally we've done some recordings for our promotional material already, and we've got a video booked in April. So we're making those steps now, and like I said, that's the kind of the business side of the people management, just getting everyone together, getting out there, being able to go and do that video. And then after that, it's all kind of like you probably know, it's editing and making sure it looks slick in terms of like the video production, without it being less authentic. So we want it to be that kind of slick video production with core raw audio from us, without it being garish. Like we don't want it we don't want it to be too much in terms of being that raw, as if it's like being recorded on your video on your phone. You don't want anything like that, but we do want it to be sounding like as close as possible in the quality that we want out of it. So yeah, that's happening in April, and then you should see us dotted around maybe social media platforms from there. That's probably the main aim that's going to happen in this year. Yeah.
I think you mentioned there you don't really use social media that much at the minute. I don't know. We do talk about social media a lot on this podcast, or I do. But you seem to have mainly used like networking to build your relationships and getting things going with this function band as well.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the core of what. Yeah, I think that's the core of what I'm about, and that's what the bands that I tend to get involved with are about as well. So networking and putting more, I'd say putting more effort in. I know that sounds quite a strong thing to say, but on the day when you're at a gig, or if you're at an event, or you're at a function or a wedding, is that you don't know what's going to happen when you're at that event and you've really got to kind of tailor yourself of what you're going to be able, like what conversations you might have on those days, and that on those days you're making an impression. You're making an impression as a person, as a business person, as it were, and you want to be making that impression while you're there, and that's where the core of it kind of comes into it. Like the core of any kind of gigs or any kind of a wedding or anything that you're going to play, it gets passed on, and like from there, like the word of mouth type thing. So then I still believe that is a strong anchor for your work that you get, without it feeling too diluted, which seems to have happened over the last decade, where everyone's jumped on the bandwagon a tad and thought, we're going to push it all out there on social media. And it's kind of like, because there are so many function bands and we're all in the same boat, like everybody's talking about it while we're here. We're all in the same boat, just trying to like obviously work, but also enjoy the work that we're doing. But it's also, it's about it's about keeping it, keeping it real. Sounds cliche, right? But keeping it real with people that when you're there, rather than getting kind of caught up in this whole marketing chaos or anything like that, which kind of seems to be quite a big thing with everybody, like I said. So if you're there and you can talk to people and communicate with everybody and just kind of be your authentic self at a gig, that comes off a lot stronger than us not doing that and just creating a video and content and that, and then sending it out as if we're authentic, So those connections that we've just been discussing, they really do matter. And to get to know, like just knowing people's names is kind of a big thing, I reckon. Like when you go to a gig, there's people, or if you go to even at a wedding, you'll know like the groom and you'll know the bride's name for sure, because you've probably been talking to them. There's probably your kind of part of discussing yourself as a function musician going on a gig. But it's more, what about others when you're there? You've got to think about all of your kind of performance and what you're playing and all of those type of things, and the set list and the sound. And you might have some function bands don't technically have a sound engineer. We don't. We are kind of we're getting better at it for sure, and we've had people come in and have a look at everything for us and see what they can like help make it better. And now we use digital mixers a lot of the time, and I've got wireless in-ear monitors. I'm actually using my in-ear monitors. I think you had a session on in-ear monitors before. That was a really cool session, by the way. So it's about how we can utilize that and take those skills and put them into ourselves. But it's always good having like an alternative outlook into that anyway, to make sure that we're actually there. So with the networking, it's about making the impression while you're there, because that is such an anchor for you, and it's not just one person of the band; it's the whole band as an outfit while you're there. It's not even related to a brand either. So your brand is something you create. It's something you've created for yourself to almost have an imprint, as if you're just putting a stamp on something, right? So that's what the brand is. But quite frankly, in my head, it's anyone can make a brand now, and I kind of create that kind of illusion that you are the big cheese, right? And it's more about what you, from the guttural, from yourself and every single member of that band, to get to know people while you're there, have those really nice conversations, whether they're chit chat or whatever, right? Whether it's just kind of casual chit chat with others that aren't necessarily musically minded, or anyone that, and we've been quite lucky. We get quite a lot of musos, as it were, that kind of just turn up and we have these really good conversations about sound through to song choices and set lists. And we have these massive chats whilst we're at these gigs, and it's quite cool. And that's, aside from the bride and groom at a wedding. Yeah. So I think seeing it from the big picture when you're there, making the impression, will ultimately, if you're patient enough, result in more. I'm not saying that marketing and all of that doesn't have an impact, because I think it does, and that we're starting to realize this now, is that now we've got to, I think you've got to give it some time, like not 6 years worth, right? But just enough time to kind of find what you're really going for, and then go and play the lower paid gigs to start off with. Just get in there, do them. You don't necessarily need any marketing. You don't need to go straight into social media. Just go out and play, do something. And then from there, start to filter it all through. And then it'll start to become this, like you said, kind of more relationship-based clientele that you have. And you're going to get people passing it on then. You're going to get passing it on as your band. Oh, these were really nice guys. They've really put their effort into their art and what they're doing with this band and the way they're playing. Go out and, I'd book them, and that's how it kind of the network starts.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's entirely my point of view. But like I said, we're really starting to push more into the marketing type stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, word of mouth is obviously kind of where you want to get to with things, but it's really hard to get there, I think. And there's a thing called the word of mouth death trap, which is you only ever hear of word of mouth working from people that have made it through there. And you don't see like the piles of dead bands that haven't made it because they couldn't rely on word of mouth yet. So that's why you do need some other strategies in there as well, especially when you're starting out, and it doesn't always have to be social media. It can be other things as well, but just the full range of different things to help grow your band, I think. But doing what you said, and it comes down to, again, just being nice people, and doing a good job really, is gonna help that.
Yeah, totally. I'm not. Again, it's not being against any of it. It's not being against any, and we did use it. We do use it now.
Yeah.
It's just not on a massive scale.
Yeah.
So it's about using that, and I think now we're starting to cotton on that we need to use it more effectively, rather than just to kind of throw up type stuff. Which
I mean, you can go back to your being raw and being honest to yourself and doing it in a way that suits you, rather than just putting things up for because you think that's going to work or because you think someone might like that or something. I think that's a really good point. Let's move on to your other side of your business then. The teaching business or tutor business. How did that start? When did that start? And a bit more about that, please. Yeah, sure.
So it started small. It was more just once I'd actually been able to drive as kind of the thing. A lot of it was wanting to go out and teach people at home was the starting point. Because I felt that, because being in a small town of called Monmouth in South Wales, being in that town, you couldn't just rely on people coming to you to be taught how to play the drums, right? So is that quite hard to bring a whole drum kit and everything to a student's house? Like at the point when they don't have a drum kit, So then, do you have to bring two drums? No, you wouldn't need to. No, it wouldn't be two. It'd be one, and then, like I said, you're going to come into some troubles. And this was like mid-20s that I started to kind of do it. It was so brief, and I'd get like one student, right, who would just come up to me, I really want to learn how to play the drums. And then it would be a matter of, right, okay, we're going to come to you with my drum kit. I'm going to set that drum kit up. They'll play it for a minute, 2 minutes or something like that. Not very long at all. And then it would be, or 10 minutes. It'd be more like, I'd just say, right, I'll teach for half an hour in real time, about 10 minutes worth of playing. And then I have to pat down again and move off, right? A little bit different now. So I did that small time before. I kind of worked in a corporate firm for a little while to kind of maintain myself and, as a way of looking after not only me, but my now family and all of that kind of stuff. So it didn't take off, but it was kind of the initial kind of idea and concept was there when in my mid-20s. Once I moved up into Cheshire. I was doing a little bit of traveling. Some children were having drum kits where they were, and it made it a little bit easier for me to kind of go in and teach that way. So this must have been roughly late 20s, early 30s, that I'd started to kind of move around, and they had kit there, which made it even better for me to kind of nurture drum teaching talent, like through my drum teaching, to nurture that talent forward, rather than me lugging my kit and putting it up and all of that kind of stuff. Like it was like years before that I'd had to do that. That was really stressful. It was really kind of stressful thing, because I knew in my heart that it was quite a good thing for me to not only pass on knowledge, but it had the startings of a business, which I didn't really have the expertise at the time to really push out there. I'm being really honest about that. So, and then what then happened is, like I said, it was more of a simple push out through odd websites. One of them's Tutorful, actually, that I started to get like just drum teaching leads. I just tended to get them, and I took them with both hands. I developed some sort of rapport over those leads. Like I said, I didn't overuse anything. It was just the odd website that I'd kind of brandish out. I give out drum teaching, and then I get the odd lead, but then it was very, very minimal how many I was getting, like three, 4 students, and they were all at their houses, because I didn't have a place of, like I have now, residents to be able to teach anyone. So it was always at somebody else's house. So it was kind of using what I have, like the knowledge I have, to be able to do it there. And then basically, I know it's unfortunate, and I don't mind bringing it up, but my father passed away in 2014, and I didn't know this, but there was a bit of kind of behind the scenes investment. He'd left a bit of money towards behind, and I built this studio with my father-in-law. Mm-hmm. So from building this with my father-in-law, that's kind of set me up to, it needs a little bit of work. I'm not going to lie, loads of things have fallen off, and it needs a bit of work. But from there, people have, and then with a bit of SEO work on Google and branded, like putting myself out there as a kind of self-employed business for drum teaching, I've started to build up more students that way. I still travel the odd time, it's still a thing, and I think it's more towards some students that have specific difficulties, that it could be a matter of traveling. That might be a bit of a thing, that they can't travel, or they have this kind of mindset where they just they're against coming to a different place in general.
Just like a bit of anxiety, or
it could be anxiety. I know it's all the rage at the minute, but ADHD and autism, etc., all of these kind of special educational needs. Mm-hmm. I tend to want to talk to the parents a lot of the time, because it is a lot of talking to parents, is to get to the bottom of it. What can I do at that moment? Is there anything that I can actually do? Yeah, cool. I'll do that, and then I'll apply myself to it. And like I said, I'm traveling to those. Some of them are okay with coming, which is fine. I think there's a slight nervousness when, especially with autistic children, wherever they are on the spectrum, to come to a new place, and then but parents are more than welcome to kind of sit in and just make sure everything's okay, and that I am in the know of kind of the limits and boundaries that are already kind of there with their child, because it's like coming back into a fresh. It's almost like every time they come to me to be taught, it's almost like it's a brand new experience every time. It's all based on individual experience a lot of the time. But so from that, like I said, it was simple, like one website or the odd website distribution for my drum teaching business, which then developed into just a general Google SEO type thing of me putting myself out there, which then developed into a gradual build up of leads. And now it's kind of got up to this stage of, like, I say 30 plus, which I said in the beginning intro, is that I've got it actually developed into word of mouth through those leads. Mm-hmm. And then it got into kind of school-based teaching in the day. Yep. So it was all of like afternoons and things that I was, teaching and really putting a graft in for that. And then it was, wow, okay. One school took me on. And then the next minute, the words got out that there's a really good teacher who's like teaching all day on one day at one school. Okay, cool. Like, we'd want that. It kind of gets a bit gimme kind of thing, like gimme that. So then it's kind of built into another day's worth. So I tend to kind of have a working day now, which is a working week, which is a little bit abnormal to say like standard 9 to 5, because it's completely different. And everybody else, any other drum teacher or anyone else that is predominantly into drums will say that they are predominantly like school-based. They have the odd one in the afternoon because otherwise their working day is absolutely mental. And some do that as well. Not going to lie, if they're that age, they probably go from like 9 o'clock or something, maybe 8 o'clock in the morning, and then they'll be teaching all the way, whether they do the whole school, and then they'll do like an after school club or something like that, and then even do more private ones after that, which means like a whole day. But like for me now, that's basically how I've developed like what is 30 plus students into my business. But I think that there's more. I think there's more that I can still kind of do, especially if students can come to me. So if they can come to my space, then I'll be able to provide high quality drum teaching, really.
I suppose there is a limit on it though, just about how many you can actually fit in with all the other things you have to do, isn't there? Yeah, because you've got, like I said, those limits that you've got to kind of place, because I can't just be like, I take everything. Everyone come to me. Like, that's not, albeit that I have that enthusiasm to play the drums. There's obviously just timing and being able to get a schedule in there. And like I said, that's business related, isn't it? So it's more of the enthusiasm and the creativity that comes into playing the drums. Cool. That's that. I think a lot of drummers have that natural ability of being able to do it. And it's more of the business side is me being that organizational tool, as it were, to be able to just place my students into specific times, and then we can actually get all of that what I just described. Yeah. So another thing that I know that we've spoken about previously is that you've quite recently, or some point recently, had a child. So how has that affected running two businesses? That time is absolutely precious. Yeah. So and everything that you do, you've just got to absolutely put everything that you've got into that. And then the time that you have with your child is also incredibly precious. He's 14 months. So that was January 23 he's born. So, it's more, you've got to really kind of divide your time very, very specifically for you to be happy with that. Yeah. And what you're doing, whether it's, like I said, playing the function band or depping, or whether it's being involved in your drum business. So all of those different tiers, if you can compartmentalize all of those and the tasks that are associated with them, and you can just literally say, right, what's the ones that I can literally, what are really important, or what are the ones that I can box off really, really quickly? Mm-hmm. That makes everything just 10 times easier. So if you can literally just go, right, that's important, we're doing that now. What's easy? Right, just get it done. I kind of stand by in a creative way to like branch out seeds to see how things kind of grow with them. Yeah.
But then it's also, right, that's immediate. Let's do that now so that we can be able to kind of still live, you know, still be able to kind of spend time with my son or spend time as a family. So it's very particular. And there are rare occasions when we can actually go out together. I think we're planning this Saturday actually to go out together. But yeah, it's more of a, if you can divide that time and be to the point in a way that you're not kind of being evasive. So if you're to the point but not being evasive over what you're trying to achieve, I think that's a very particular skill to have. I think I have that. And you're not, I wouldn't say offending anyone, but also just being, because you've got an aim, right? I've got an aim. I want students to be able to get the most they can out of being able to play the drums when they come to me. That's my aim. So there was going to be things that I want to be able to apply in my lessons that will help them to do that, rather than where people kind of, I think people kind of jump over those kind of hurdles too early, rather than going back, right, and really getting to the core. And that's where I'm getting that at the minute, actually, with a couple of students that really have this mindset, which is cool, right? The expectation of where you want to be as a drummer, say, creatively, and then the realization of where you're actually currently, yeah. And I'm probably saying this because I've been through that experience. Mm-hmm. So that kind of, I think it must have been, when I was 12, 13, but I felt like I had the core down of being able to play the drums within about 6 months, right? And in my head, that's a good time frame, because especially with a good teacher, I mean, let me go into that actually. So like when I started to learn, I did close to 6 months, but it was one session of half an hour a week at school, in school time. I got introduced some music to play to, some actually written music. But if I'm honest, my focus wasn't really genuinely into it. Like, if I can be really, really brutally honest with myself, I wasn't into reading and playing. I was into playing and playing. And I did the 6 months and then I just went, I don't need this anymore. I think that's because of the environment that I was in. Like I said, loads of different bands that I was just regularly kind of getting into and playing music for the sake of passion and actually liking to listen to the music and understand what the drums were doing without the need for looking at music, actual written music. That kind of skill only kind of came along a little bit more kind of prominently in 2014 for me. So for the reason that that's kind of around the time when I moved up north, and my wife is actually a brass band player. She plays tenor horn, she's grade 8, and if this gets aired, she's amazing. She's actually really, really good. But she's a kind of player where she loves to read the notes, and the notes are what they do. Like everything you read is exactly what you're going to get. And then the art of it comes out of her. Yeah. So everything that she produces and everything that she creates out of that is what's on the page, you know, say there's a crescendo or diminuendo or, you know, certain articulation, or like, to me, that's, if you go back to me being younger, that would be completely unheard of.
Yeah.
Until I joined Cheshire brass band when I came up up north, and literally I had to. If I didn't, like, it just wouldn't make any sense, like, at all to anything. It would just be me riffing or improvisation or anything like that. That's basically how the business kind of grew, to be honest. So my business kind of grew out of that. Reading, I think, has kind of become quite has been infiltrated my drum business gradually. And from that, I always say it's more of the marks that kind of deter you in a certain place. So if you want to be able to play a certain kind of fill, or if you want to play a certain kind of groove, but it's got ghost notes within it or anything like that, the best way is obviously to play it. But when you're trying to arrange something and play it, that's kind of a different. What's the first thing you do? You want to write it down, maybe, right? But it's already written for you. So take whatever kind of. I suppose that's a tip from me, is to take written music in your stride. Sometimes when, like in brass band, for example, when I've been there, some of the written music hasn't been written by percussionists or drummers. So it doesn't quite fit. So don't take it as law, I suppose. Don't take the written music as law. Do something that actually makes sense with the music or the context. And that makes it more amenable and people will enjoy it more. So that's kind of how my business is generated, and that's how I kind of teach, I suppose, is that's a lot of the time of understanding context and when you apply stuff and when you don't.
Awesome, man. So I feel like that kind of moves us on nicely to the last section of the show, which is your best gigs, your worst gigs, or basically a time just to have a little brag, tell some cool stories or some bad stories if you want. Yeah, man, what have you got?
I'd say supporting Hawthorne Heights was pretty decent.
Nice.
But because I absolutely hounded the promoter, and if he's out here, I think if he's actually listening to this, I doubt it, but if he is, I hounded him because it was out of kind of playing for free, supporting a band who was of their caliber type thing. And like, it was mad because we were early 20s. We knew who they were. We really I really like their music. And it's more of the, that kind of emo stage kind of thing, which we were growing up with at the time. And to even given an opportunity where of a band of our size, which it wasn't very big, who were just kind of finding our feet. We'd just done the EP, I think, at the time as well. And we just wanted to kind of brandish ourselves out there. It was a huge opportunity because like that venue, I think it's changed names. It used to be called Static Bar in Swansea, and then it kind of changed, and I think it's called the Bunkhouse now. I don't know. I haven't been down in South Wales for ages. Yeah, we played that show, and there were a couple of other bands on that. We really, I don't think they're going anymore. But I just remember playing that show, and it being, even though we were kind of opening, it was still like a realization moment of, yeah, people are actually kind of getting to know our band a bit at this point. And it was that push off. And then the actual event of everybody being there, it's quite a small venue, but when you've got a small venue, I find they're intense in a really kind of community, homely type way, where everyone's just wanting to have this kind of boisterous but enthusiastic great time. And that's kind of what happened. That's what happened at that gig, and it was just a great gig in general. So yeah, that was kind of a good gig. I've had loads of other kind of good, positive function gigs where not as intense, say, but that you're looked after really, really well.
Yeah.
So that you don't feel like you're going from the ground up. Just kind of, I don't know, having to bring sandwiches to a show, for example, which has happened many a time. Yeah, so there's been loads of those, and even in depths with other function musicians that I've played with, just them being generally kind as well, because it's that understanding of you're in a professional outlet, and that everybody sees and finds the respect for each other and what they do. There's been many a moment of those as well. Bad gig, they're all pretty recent as well. So I made a trip down in the summer to go and play like a holiday park gig, and it was on like an agency, and I just did it on a whim. I'm not going to name any names because it would just spark a little bit. But I went down there, and it was to play like 2 gigs over a weekend. I played the one, I set up my kit, we got in, and it was like a 90s night thing. turned up for one gig. I learned all the material for the one gig, and then and that was great. And it went all to plan. Finished the show, packed up, went home. Well, I went to a hotel for the night, and then what happened is the second night, it was singers broke down. They couldn't get a replacement singer, and they were on the verge of basically getting another act in for that Saturday night. And I was there pretty much all ready to go when I heard that it all happened, and it just kind of, I was all ready to go. I wanted to play, and obviously, I'm thinking about getting paid, but also doing the job, and my head was just all over the place. So that was a really, really bad experience, a really, really bad gig, to be honest. But in the end, I was there. I was ready to go. I was professional enough to kind of just stay as calm as possible, see what we could actually achieve throughout the hours when they broke down, and see if it could actually happen. But yeah, that was it wasn't really a gig. I didn't really play, so it was more of, that's why it's a bad gig.
Yeah.
That's the first one. And then the second bad gig was, well, I wouldn't say it was a bad gig either, because again, the people that surround the place were nice. So this is an alternative kind of contrasting thing. Everyone at the gig was really, really nice. It was just like a pub gig that we were playing with my current function band, actually. So they're really, really nice. We have a really good rapport with the promoters, and everyone that's on board and wanting us to do really, really well and do a good job of entertaining their patrons and stuff. So we get in there, we're all set up, ready to go, and ready to play. However, a guy walks in literally minutes after we start, it must be 10 minutes after we start set up. I've literally got I have a really good setup to throw up my kit almost, especially on the stage that they've got. It's a very small stage, so I'm restricted to about a 4-piece kit, and 2-3 cymbals. And then literally guy walks in saying, "Oh, we're booked for tonight." And I go, "Oh, it's a double book." And then I literally explained that we were booked about 2 months prior, and we have this rapport with the bar. And it's literally I explained that to this guy, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we were contacted last week." I was like, "Well, we were prior booked. This is how it is. We're here. We're ready to go." And I was trying not to be I didn't want to be so pushy with him, but it was kind of, this is happening now, whether you like it or not. And I think they had this expectation that we were just going to pack down and let them play. And we were like, "Mate, I'm here. Do you know how much effort it takes to do all of this?" And then, so from there, we start playing. We do about 7 songs. We're about 7 songs into the first set. And the entirety of half of the square block of all of these businesses, the lights and the power just go, all of it, right? And we're like, no one brought an acoustic, did they? No one brought anything. That's the first thing I kind of went to. Has anyone brought a cajon, or has anyone got any kind of acoustic guitars? We didn't, so we had no power whatsoever. And we were just hanging around. Like I said, we're just chatting to everyone and just making sure everyone's okay. And the business, basically everyone just walked out after 7 songs. And then we were just sat there, and then it was a kind of we were kind of waiting for the power to come back on. It reaches 11:30 to midnight, kind of hope, sitting, waiting, wishing. And then it's kind of, we better pack up and go. So, and I think the business was just deciding we're going to close anyway. Yeah. So we're like, yeah, okay, fair enough. So we packed up and went home. So we didn't really gig. So two experiences, I think.
The lesson there is always bring an acoustic guitar, right?
Always bring an acoustic setup, no matter what. Yeah, I think we're going to have to do that. We're going to have a discussion in the function band and sort that out. Yeah.
Awesome, man. We've run a little bit long, so I think that's about what we have time for. But it's been awesome chatting with you.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So if people wanted to learn a bit more about you or connect with you on any social media or anything like that, where would you send them?
Just my website in general. So my website is www.alexbargemusic.co.uk. I obviously have my function band, which is Gravity, is our name. So it's www.gravitymusic.co.uk. We're on all of the social media platforms, albeit, like we've mentioned in this podcast, that it's not so prominent, and a lot of it's very kind of live video based at the minute, but our promo is on the way. So feel free to check that out in a little while, and you'll be able to get onto that. I am in still like a creative kind of in a creative force called Braveface. We play post-hardcore grungy punk type music. We take influence from bands like Touche Amore and Idols and Alexis on Fire. We're on Spotify. We've got a couple of singles out, so feel free to check them out there. Those are my like main four things that I'm doing. So.
I'll definitely be checking them out.
Thanks.
I feel like we grew up on a similar music, so yeah, I'll definitely be checking it out. But awesome, man! Thanks so much for coming on and having a chat with me.
It's been really, really nice, honestly. Like it's almost like refreshing. It's really refreshing to really go and get into it.
So there we go. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. I just want to say thanks to Alex again for coming on and having a chat. I know this one's been a very long one, so I'm not going to keep you any longer. Next week's episode is awesome. I've got my first returning guest, so keep an eye out for that. Take it easy, and I'll catch you next week for episode 22.